Good afternoon, everyone. We're delighted to see so many people joining us for this month's Learning and Development session on creating a suicide prevention network and sustaining momentum. Welcome back to all of those who joined us on the previous sessions for this program, and a warm welcome to all the new folks who are joining us for the first time today. My name's Nicola Parry. I'm the Head of Lived Experience Engagement and Integration, and I'm joined by my team member, Julia Granahan, and we'll be your hosts for today's session. If you'd also like to take this opportunity to introduce yourselves in the chat, we'd love to see who's online with us today. We're delighted and privileged to have three fantastic panel members join us for this session today, all members of community groups and networks. We have Sam Phipps, Ray O'Brien, and Tynan Nariwanchik, and they'll be taking us through their own individual pathways and connections to suicide prevention groups and their experiences with sustaining the momentum of these groups, and they'll be taking the floor very shortly. But first, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and waters that we live, work, and dream on, and acknowledge that we are all joining this session from different lands today. Julia and I are coming to you from the Yagara and Turrbal People's Country on Mianjin land, and we pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who join us on this session today. We would also like to acknowledge everyone's lived experience of suicide and thank everyone who joins us today for contributing their invaluable insights, knowledge, and their individual expertise to this session and to suicide prevention more broadly. Before we make the introductions that we've all been waiting for, I'll take us through a few guidelines for the session. So this session will review the foundations of creating a suicide prevention network and sustaining momentum. We're hoping that we'll all leave this session with a clear vision on what this looks and feels like to work within a suicide prevention network. And that we all have a deep understanding on the benefits and challenges to creating a suicide prevention network and how to sustain that momentum. We all have a greater awareness of points of contact and supports available to us to achieve our objectives, and that we all feel supported, empowered, and connected when we leave this session today. We will finish with an open Q&A, and you're welcome to submit questions throughout the session, but please note that these will not be answered until the end. To submit a question, please use the Q&A webinar function as shown on the screen. This will be moderated by us throughout the session. We'll try to cover as many questions as possible, and if we cannot respond, we will absolutely respond to you offline in the coming days. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to our panel, and we'll start with Sam Phipps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicola, and hello to everyone today. My name's Sam, and I use the pronouns she, her, and I work and reside on Whadjuk Noongar country in beautiful WA. I stand on the banks of Jilgara Belia, which is a hunting and watering hole for First Nations people. And I'd really like to, I guess, talk about my involvement within the suicide prevention networks here in Western Australia. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for Roses in the Ocean's non-clinical peer-led services, and since June 2021, I've been involved in a suicide prevention network called PARC, Community Response Group. Stands for Peel and Rockingham Kwinana, a beautiful part of Western Australia. And in June 2023, the funding for the project officer and the project that PARC was involved in ceased. And as a group, we had to decide whether we were going to disband or evolve into, a suicide prevention collaborative. We decided to evolve, and we're made up, we're an interagency group that's made up of service providers, community members, and people with a lived experience. And I guess the purpose of our group coming together on a monthly basis is to share information about what's happening in community, the community trends, the community needs, the service provider capacity, whether we can support in a coordinated way. And I guess that is our goal for coming together on a monthly basis. The success of PARC has now seen 2 other suicide prevention networks being set up and developed within the metro area. And I'm really privileged to work alongside people in this particular area and with the wonderful members of the community response group. Thanks so much, Nicola.
Perfect. Nice to connect with you all, and it's an absolute pleasure. So my name's Tynan. I come from Gimoy, Wallaburra, Yidinji land, so in Cairns, over on the opposite side of this country to Sam Phipps. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. Look, I'm just going to give a bit of a brief intro about me and the journey that I've been on. So I come to this session today with multiple lived experiences of suicide. I've had non-fatal attempts of suicide. I've lived with thoughts of suicide, and I've also had that experience of being a carer and supporting a family member through suicidal crisis. Getting involved in the world of lived experience has been quite an organic journey that started off with a rather interesting dialogue to understand and learn that actually I have a lived experience of suicide, but beyond that, what actually a lived experience of suicide means and what you can actually do with it. So shortly after connecting with Rose in the Ocean, it seems like a long time ago, 2016. Wow, it's been a journey. I found out that I had this lived experience of suicide, and I soon became quite eager to connect with the world of suicide prevention and really do what I can to contribute to helping others who might find themselves in situations that I'd experienced, and do what I can to help prevent suicide. And I found my way into a number of networks based in Cairns and nationally focused on suicide prevention, and the Cairns Hinterland Suicide Prevention Task Force. I've had many, many different roles in the world of suicide prevention, but I think that the thing that I'd like to say today is that many opportunities come, and I think it's about having yourself in a place of being ready for them. I currently co-chair the National Men's Lived Experience of Suicide Network, which I think is the first and probably the only men's suicide prevention network that exists in the globe. It's a real privilege to be involved in it, and the circumstances around life that have led me to be able to be in this position of being there have been a number of doors opening and stepping in them. The network formed 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, out of need and out of people going, what are we going to do around the world of male suicide prevention? What we have done is created this online community that now has 126 members within it, spread around the country. A couple of platforms that we've done. So we generate a monthly opportunity for people to come together and connect, but we've also responded to the needs that have come from that. And we've created an online safe space where every fortnight we hold a 90-minute session, and we allow anyone who identifies as male from around the country to come into the space and connect and be supported by other people with a lived experience of suicide. Now, I use the word support lightly because it's quite often an interesting dynamic when you throw the word support into the world of male lived experience of suicide, because people are like, well, I don't really want to be supported, I'd rather be supported. But when you frame up the ability to have conversations and connections over a commonality of having a lived experience of suicide, it breaks down a lot of doors and a lot of stigma, and it just allows people to be themselves and be connected into it. The journey of the National Men's Lived Experience Network has created a lot of opportunities to use lived experience in a variety of avenues. One is to inform policy. One is to help shape the way that grassroots level suicide prevention projects are done. And one is to also change the way that we have conversations around suicide and actually transcend and kind of direct where we go for male suicide prevention. I'm going to stop talking there and I'm going to throw over to Ray. But look, it's a pleasure to be here today, and we've got some really good discussions to share with you tonight.
Thanks, Tynan. My name's Ray, and I'm coming to you from Townsville and on the lands of the Wulgurukaba and the Bindal people. So, and very happy to be with you today. A little bit about my journey. of suicide prevention. It started in 2017, late in October that year. We lost our middle son, Sam, to suicide. And everything I've done since in this space, pretty much everything I've done since, is to honour Sam's memory and to keep that new stage of the relationship that I have with him alive. And I remember when we first lost Sam, there was this whole raft of emotions and feelings and just coming and going all the time. And some of the enduring positive aspects of that have been the energy and the passion and the absolute urgency that have remained around wanting to stop this happening to other people, as crazy as that sounds or silly as that sounds. But I remember one of the early decisions, and it sounds funny to me retrospectively, but one of the early choices we made was not to go off or not to go down a path of starting our own foundation, but rather to work with, collaborate with organisations and that were already in existence. So having made that choice, it then, over a period, none of this happened in clear steps. It all sort of evolved over time. But one thing we did in around 2019 was we found the Townsville Suicide Prevention Network, and gratefully, thankfully, that network had been in operation for about 3 years before I found it. And that felt good, and I stayed. And now, surprisingly to no one greater than myself, I find myself as a treasurer on that committee. And we'll talk more about that experience over the next time we share together. One of the other things I did earlier in the piece, that probably about 5 or 6 weeks into our journey, was we joined a peer-led suicide bereavement support group. And again, gratefully and thankfully, Townsville had a group that had been up and running and in operation for a number of years before we got involved, and that felt good, and I stayed. And again, there's a bit of a common theme developing. It just goes to show if you hang around anywhere long enough, you get given a job to do, I think, in this space. I'm now a co-facilitator with my wife, Donna, and another couple, facilitating that group in the way it currently looks now. And we've just recently commenced an online aspect to that face-to-face group. One of the other organisations I connected with when the time was right, it found me, like a lot of, as Tynan referred to, a lot of aspects of my journey, if not all of them, sort of found me. The opportunities found me rather than me deliberately seeking anything out. And while it has been an intentional journey, the steps haven't really been deliberate. They've very much been organic. And it's about being open to those opportunities when they present. And the beauty of the network, the beauty of our local suicide prevention network, it allowed me the time and the space to find my feet, to grow my confidence and find my voice, so that when those opportunities presented, I was able to, step into a role. But Roses in the Ocean is one of the other organisations I've had a bit to do with. I joined their Lived Experience Collective in the early times and hung around long enough, and now find myself on the Lived Experience Advisory Group. And that's fantastic as well. But that's enough of the why and the what from me for the time being.
Look, great discussion. And as everyone can see, there's a wealth of knowledge and wealth of experience here. It's really interesting that the diversity that sits within the world of lived experience of suicide. But I do like to come back to the why we do things and why we do what we do. Sam, I'm going to come to you. Like, for someone who works full time, you have kids, you have a life, you have a lot of things going on in your world, but yet here you are continually giving outside of work, giving outside of there. What drives you? Like, why do you do that? What is it that brings you into that world?
Look, I think, having had a lived experience for 40 years as, caring for people in emotional distress and family members, and also having my own experience of suicidal thinking, bringing meaning and purpose to what I do in, whether it be within my community or whether it be in my work role, it's really important. And I guess my commitment to being a part of the suicide prevention networks here in Perth is around, I really want the right support to be distributed amongst the community. So, why do I spend the time that I do every month on these suicide prevention networks? It's really because I want to see helpful help get to people on the ground. I want to understand what the community trends and the needs are, so that when I'm asked, where can I get help and where can I get support in my peer support role, I'm able to direct the community to service providers who have capacity, to other services who might be able to provide a more culturally or appropriate service for people. And also, I think for me, it's that collective care for my community, and particularly being able to have the opportunity to inform from a lived experience perspective as to what might be happening on the ground. And I guess, Ray, I would love to hear from you, around why do you explained before it was around your son, but, as a busy person, I know yourself having kids and grandkids and jobs as well. What drives you to keep showing up and putting your hand up for those roles that I know you often say, I haven't got time for?
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. I suppose I can probably best answer that. I know at the time I didn't, you know how you look back and things are different to your first intention. I didn't know what I was stepping into, 5 years ago, but I've tried to attend and be present at every opportunity since, because I suppose the initial reason was wanting to do something but not knowing what that looked like, and Googling and people talking and suicide prevention all came together in a natural fit into the Townsville Suicide Prevention Network in my town. And I knew, and I'd find like-minded people. And sure enough, after a few of those meetings and being in the space for a while, I realised that my confidence grew, because I realised nobody else knew anything either. We're in a pioneering space, and there are no experts really when it comes down to it. Nobody knows. No, there's no silver bullet or magic fix, but it's collaboration and collectivity and working together. Sorry, connectivity, connection with each other, and working together across, the diverse range of what a local community looks like. We need everyone to be at the table. So I was hoping it would evolve it and make sense to me over time, which it has. It's given me a voice. It's given me a lot of funny as it sounds. I also feel a sense of personal healing, in that, that energy I talked about in my introduction. If you don't have some healthy action to put an energy towards, it can pathologize in all sorts of unhealthy ways. And being a part of the solution through, volunteering in a community organisation for the improvement and the betterment of the life of the people that exist in that community is one of the more healthier ways for that energy to pathologise, rather than the whole raft of other options, which are also out there. But it gives me a voice, it gives my community a voice, it gives me contacts, it helps me understand the space better, it helps me to understand what is in my local community as far as supports for people, and what do they each do, and what are the gaps. So maybe not so in the initial reasons that I was looking for, but just some absolute personal benefits along the way that I have found.
Thanks so much,
There's,
Ray. I love what you're saying,
there's,
connectivity. And Tynan, I was going to I guess throw to you, because I know earlier today we were talking about connectivity and the importance of that in the lived experience men's network.
100%. And I look at the topics already discussed, and there's a synergy that sits across them all. And that's that vulnerability lens about life happens and you want to do something with it. Like for me, I come back to the connectivity part, and I draw on a time in my life where I didn't want to live, but I didn't really want to die at the heart of it. And through that, I was given like this gift of time. And the more you get around lived experience, you see that by sharing a common experience with people, you can sort of breathe life into their situation. You can breathe a new lens of enthusiasm. And to me, the ability of connecting with someone on such a deep and vulnerable level is like the most beautiful thing that you can ever have. Like I look at human connection as the most beautiful gift that we ever experience in this world. And to connect with people around lived experience, to connect with people around some often dark topics. Yeah, and I look at us now, and we're smiling. And sometimes that's kind of taboo. People think, how can you be smiling? And I think, well, I have lived the experience of suicide, and I come to it with enthusiasm, and that's how I'm going to do it. And I look at the people in the networks that I connect with, and there's smiles, there's laughs. Like we all share such beautiful, rich conversations. And it's the sort of thing that sustains you to keep coming back, because it's the connections that you build, and it's the outside of the meetings, it's outside of the networks, that if you're feeling a little bit down or a little bit flat, you've got people that you can call, and people that you can get it, and people that you may not have the same lived experience as you, but somewhere along the line, the chapters that they've lived resonate with you and they resonate with them. And when you get that, the synergies that happen, they transcend like the reality. Like they transcend what's going on in your world, and they're really, really beautiful things that you can get to experience. So it's something that I'll always come back to, is that at the heart of it, I've had these experiences and I know what it was like. And there's other people around me that have had experiences, and we get each other.
I really love that, Tynan. And there was a little bit in there that you talked about around sustainability. And I guess this has been a conversation here in the Suicide Prevention Networks around, so how do we sustain momentum, as well as our own personal sustainability as people with lived experience? And I'd love to, I guess, hear from, say, you or Ray, Tynan, and I guess understand, how do we keep that momentum going in this space when often the work is quite tiring? And yes, we do bring our meaning and purpose, but it can often be quite confronting and difficult to get, that cohesive nature of people coming to the network.
I'll
let you go, Ray.
Thanks, Tynan. I'll jump in there, Sam. I've heard a lot of sustaining my own personal momentum has been interesting and interesting, but I think it draws from that that passion that I referred to earlier. Everyone in this space seems to draw from their own personal source and experience. So it's about putting that energy into action, and one of the terms I've come to be familiar with, which is done too much now, is self-care. I didn't even know what that was until about 6.5 years ago, but I absolutely understand the importance of it now. And but what used to work back then doesn't work now, and so it changes. But I have a whole list of things that I now recognise are not selfish behaviours or laziness, but they help me. They help fill my cup back up, and it's taking time for me to do that. That helps me to, be a source of energy when you need to represent. When you're not on the playing field. The whole 80 minutes. It's only 80 minutes a week type thing. It's been a long time since I was on a playing field, but you rest, you look after yourself, and pace yourself. There's some things about this journey that we do need to look after ourselves for the journey ahead. Don't we, Tynan? How do you look after yourself?
Look, I love everything that you said. I think one of the things that I continually remind myself and have people around, it comes back to that connection piece, Sam, and connecting with other people that are on a similar journey. If you look at the world of lived experience and the role it's playing, it's still pretty new. And there's foundations that are being laid all around the country, all around the world. And I think it's when you connect with other people and you find out what other networks are doing, what other foundations are doing, what other charities are doing, it really helps to breathe that freshness in. Because if you look at it from being part of a network, and I look at it, the example of being part of the Cairns Suicide Prevention Task Force for a long time, if we looked at just us as the only entity doing that in this country, the task becomes very overwhelming and very burdensome. But when you go broader and you look at what's happening in Western Australia, what's happening in Townsville, what's happening all around the country, all around the world, and you see that there's other networks on a journey, by connecting with them and not living in a silo, a beautiful thing happens. Like you get to a place where you might be feeling a bit flat, a bit down because maybe your engagement thing hasn't worked. You pick up the phone and you have a conversation with someone who's somewhere else, and you say, hey, look, I really want to do this, or I'm trying to do this. What's worked for you? And once you do that, not only are you building up your own ability to connect with people and manage your own expectations, but you're starting to create that ripple effect by someone's dropped something in Western Australia and now I'm going to give it a try in Cairns, and someone's dropped something in America and now I'm going to try it in Brisbane. And I look at that as an opportunity for us to really have a big impact. And sustainability wise, there's no shortage of networks. I think it's sustaining yourself and not seeing it as I have to do it all, because other people are doing it too, and have that perspective of we're actually working together versus I'm working alone. But I feel like I'm preaching to you, Sam, because you do all this stuff. So what works for you over in WA?
So look, I guess for me, around sustaining the momentum of the Suicide Prevention Network is really around, for us, for the first 6 months of PARC, we really weren't sure what it was going to look like. So our main goal was actually just to get people to come to the meetings and connect in exactly that, share information, talk about what was going on for them. And so when you look at that and you compare that to my own personal sustainability, what I have found the benefits of being a part of those networks is that there's a collective care there. So we are actually sharing the load of some of the complexities within that community, and we're able to network with each other and offer support. So, when difficult things do arise, we can provide a coordinated response, not just for the community, but for the people that are working in the space and for the network as a whole. From that network, sustainability, of getting people coming to the table, what we actually then discovered was that people wanted upskilling training. So that gave everybody an opportunity to share about their own organisation, what we do, what capacity they had. And, 12 months on, we're coming into our second year. We're just about to step into our second year. Super exciting, a fabulous membership. And today we were talking about long-term sustainability and how we've done that without funding. So really, I guess a key moment for us, this month.
Can I just jump in there, Sam? And I want to be careful how I word this, so I'm respectful for the people within our own network. But firstly, congratulations and well done on getting PARC up and running and being part of the team behind that. And happy anniversary and good luck in next year, year 2. From the Townsville perspective, from the perspective of a network that has been operating, say since 2016, we're now 24, so that's about 8 years. There was a period there, and it's sort of the backstory as to how I went along to the wrong meeting and found myself on the committee. We, if you liken it to a bit of a train journey, driven by volunteers in the community space, and we're all accepting of what we each have to offer with time and energy, that we're volunteers. I mean, what are they going to do? Sack us? But you know, that analogy, we were all on the train journey together, but somewhere along the way, in my experience, I got distracted with work, and I was probably looking out the window of the train carriage a little bit when I should have been paying attention to the track ahead. And we found ourselves in a period of a little over a year where we lost our way. We tried to be all things to all people, and you know, we added stops in along the way. So we looked outside the Townsville, we looked outside our own area, and the meetings, we it just got too cluttered, and I felt that I was just going along once on a monthly basis to be told what the network had done in the last month and see you next month type thing. There was no space for the members to talk about their issues, what they needed, what they identified, and it sounds like a criticism, but it's not, and it's just something to be aware of in the volunteer space, that they can get a little bit off track from time to time, and then they can fall over. But the main thing, I suppose, is not to panic, not to worry. Sometimes that has to happen for a new start to occur. So yeah, that's probably where I wanted to talk to you there, Sam.
Yeah, no, and look, you know, Park Community Response Group had to evolve. You know, we had to decide we were no longer a post-vention community response group. That responsibility had been handed over to another organisation and another group of people from a wider metro area. So to be able to, you know, continue on with Park, we had to evolve to a suicide prevention collaborative or network. And so for us, we had to bring together some of, you know, a working together agreement and a terms of reference, and talk about what was the purpose for us spending our time. So I think, you know, the evolution, the ever changing, I think it's really important that you're constantly looking at what needs to change in this space. Otherwise, you know, you stay stagnant, and then you're not meeting the needs of your community. So we regularly do Park member community consultations. So tell us what's happening, tell us what you want, tell us where the gaps are. And then that way, and we also invite members from the Park group and outside of Park to present on other services so that we're keeping ourselves current and up to date. So, but yeah, I'm loving this discussion, and yeah, love to delve into some more questions.
Sam, that's really cool. And I love this perspective that you've both brought, and that effectively, like, that community awareness raising, going out there and letting people know that what's actually happening in the region. It's a really good way to actually softly introduce people to the networks as well and let people know what's happening. I'm just wondering, like, what's your tips around that in terms of like engaging new people to come into the meetings? What's worked for you?
We just keep our invitations open, so all's welcome. Very similar to Roses in the Ocean's non-clinical peer-led service. There's no exclusion criteria and a no wrong door. Everyone's welcome. You know, not everyone sits within the suicide prevention space, but what's really helpful for us within that suicide prevention post-vention space is knowing what else is out there so that we can connect people in and provide wraparound support for the whole community and a coordinated response. and responsible funding direction as well, which I think is just an amazing opportunity.
Nicola.
Thank you so much to the three of you for this conversation, which I could listen to for the rest of the day, because there's such a wonderful natural flow to it, and you've brought so much experience and wisdom around your learnings in this particular space. Just on that, following on from that, soft introductions and how to engage people, I know a lot of people who've joined us today are already established members of suicide prevention groups. But for those who've joined us today and they're in a space where they've just come into suicide prevention and they're looking to join a group, what would be your learnings, and how would you guide that person to the suicide prevention group in their own community? And I'll pass that to Sam first. Thank you.
Oh, look, I think, there's so many ways in which we can invite people to this space. And I think it's just about making people aware that we exist, and that we're open to, all, I guess, all perspectives and all contributions to the particular space. One thing I will say, working in the lived experience space, and I don't use the term self-care, I use the term personal sustainability. So what do I need to do to care for myself, right, to be able to show up as my best self within this space? So, and it's really around, for me, knowing what my limitations are, knowing when I have to say no, and also having a strong leadership team within the suicide prevention network. So it not just being all on you. So if you're the chair, it's great to have two other co-chairs. From my personal point of view, I think it's really important that we share the load of the work and keep that sustainability, for ourselves, but also for the network. Nothing worse than being burnt out. Sorry, Nicola, you're on mute.
So sorry, Sam. We do have a question that's come in from one of the people who've joined us today. We're starting a suicide prevention network. What are some tips, please? And I will pass that one to Ray. Thanks.
Thank you, Nicola. Good question. Tips. Be patient. Be patient. Things will take time. Remember that it's a different space we're creating. It's not a corporate space with action plans and timelines where everything's got to happen by. It's a volunteer space, so always respectful of what people have to give. Part of the issue that we found was the importance of keeping the host organisation separate from from a funded body that's required to provide services for the broader primary health network, just so that focus can stay on the local LGA, the local government area, or your local township. Remembering that whenever something is created and put out to the public space, it will evolve and change, generally for the better, but not always. But it's part of an evolutionary process. I don't know if that answered the question at all. I got a bit off track, I think.
Thanks, Ray. I would actually like to pass that to Sam and Tynan as well, because I think you both have different tips. And I think that all of those tips will be helpful when you are starting a new suicide prevention network. So Tynan, I'll pass to you next, please.
The first thing I'll say to sort of what Sam was saying before around being new into lived experience, which does really feed into this in terms of establishing a group, is that every lived experience matters. And you do sometimes hear people, when they have their lived experience, they might be, oh, I've only got one, or I've only got this. I just want to be very clear and say that if you have a lived experience of suicide, like, I have a lot of respect for you, and I care about you, even if I haven't met you, like I genuinely do. And I just want to say that every lived experience has value that sits within it. And there's so much uniqueness that sits within every lived experience story that I've ever heard and every person I've ever met. And so no matter where you are on your journey, you matter. And I just really want to reiterate that. And in terms of setting up a group, I think having that understanding as well, that if people do want to come and join your group and be connected into it, that they matter as well. And what comes with that is often there's so many varied levels where people are at. And I would say just ensuring that people know that it's okay to pull back, even if it's early on. It's okay to pull back and be, okay, I'm right for a month now, but if it's coming up to a significant date in your life, it's okay to pull back. Because I know that I've met many people within groups and the networks that I've been in that they don't allow themselves that, because they see it's such a important topic. They go all in, and trust me, like I'm a person, and Sam, you're the same, and Ray, you're the same. Like we go all in, and like I've been burnt out before. But I think when you're setting out a group, have a discussion around making sure that it's safe for people to go, today's not a good day for me, and that's okay. And it doesn't mean that they can't come back tomorrow, but it's just set that standard right from the start, where if it's not a good day, and for whatever reason that may be, that's okay. And I think that is a big tip in terms of sustaining a group, but also setting it up and making it a place that's safe, and in many aspects a place that accepts people for where they are in their journey.
Thanks, Tynan. And I guess to add to that, Sam, you know, in giving your tips when starting a new suicide prevention group, part of that is all around the challenges that you face when you start up a new group, and what they look like, and how do you actually navigate that pathway as you're setting up that group.
Look, for us, I think we came together, we had a purpose, we knew what we wanted to achieve by setting up or evolving the group. But we really didn't know how to navigate that. So what we actually just started out doing is we did a working together agreement. So what do we need in this group to be able to safely feel supported enough to contribute? And the other tip that I would say is that from the very outside of when we first started up the Park Suicide Prevention Collaborative, we put a lived experience lead into the leadership team. So we had a chair, a co-chair, and a lived experience lead role that ensured that everything that was being done within that group had a lived experience lens and was informed by those perspectives as well. And opening up the group, I think, is really, really important to have that diversity, to bring different perspectives. It's so important. And, you know, for a lot of us, we have some funders who come and sit within our networks, and that's really helpful for them, not just us. It's helpful for them to know where the needs are within that particular community, and a collaborative approach to filling training sessions, collaborating on resources. So I guess making sure that you have some boundaries and guidelines as to how you want to work together would be my top tip. But also having, I guess, a purpose, you know, a 6-month goal, a 9-month goal, a 12-month goal as to where you want to see, and some measurements there, you know.
Okay.
And our measurement was how many people are coming to our meetings.
Right. So having that common purpose, that common goal, that objective that you're all working towards, that you've created as a working together agreement, having a lived experience lead, somebody that's always able to provide that lived experience lens across the work that you do as a community group, making sure that you have those boundaries and guidelines, but also remembering that this is a place for collaboration, talking to Tynan's comments earlier about recognizing that lived experience, whatever that lived experience looks like, is valued in the group and respected, that mutual respect takes place and connectivity. And we go, you know, we always go back to that connectivity, which leads me to the next question, which was, this is from somebody who's joined us today saying, I've heard connection mentioned a few times. How important do you think connection is making groups work? Which I think that you've spoken to about the vital importance of connection. But if once we get through that, where you've made that connection, how do you foster that and continue to foster that, which talks to the sustainability of the group? And I'll pass that to you. Thanks, Ray.
Yeah, thanks, Nicola. Good question again. Yeah, connection, maintaining it, fostering it. I know for me personally, the relationships, and I think Tynan spoke to this before, the relationships that you make through other people, other members in that group that are all there for very similar reasons. There's so much shared ground there. For me, it's important to feel heard, and that deep sharing and trust helps to build that connection. And by understanding, I'm an expert in my life, by connecting with others and listening, we understand a different perspective that we were not aware of before. And so the more times that happens, the richer our understanding and that of the group, which is focused on that community, the more representative of the issues that community faces, that network can be. So if people are coming along, even to that very first meeting, and feeling validated, valued, as Tynan said, every person who is in that space is valuable, and if they're treated that way, as we like to be, it's sort of simple as that, fundamental for me.
Thank you so much, Ray. I'll pass this next question to Sam. How do you create a value proposition for organisation and service providers to support a local suicide prevention network?
Sorry, would you mind reading that question again?
The question is, how do you create a value proposition for organisations and service providers to support a local suicide prevention network? So how, I guess you were talking about funders coming to your meetings. How do you communicate and connect with those people?
So we're really lucky in WA to have great support from WA Primary Health Alliance, the Mental Health Commission, and the other organisations who have their own streams of funding. So, for example, we've got World Suicide Prevention Day coming up. So one organisation's providing the venue, which is the local government agencies. Then we've got someone else providing $500 towards a coffee van. So that collaborative nature and what we're showing our funders is that even without funding, this is a valuable network to be a part of. And for them, when they learn about what's happening in the community trends and what's happening on the ground, it allows them the opportunity to go and work their own strategies and their own funding streams to meet the needs of the community. And I guess for me, the real purpose of being a part of that suicide prevention network is to provide a coordinated and collaborative, response to the trends and the community needs. And one example I'll give you is that, public transport is very limited in one particular area. By having that by one service provider having that conversation about their clients not being able to access services, a whole group of service providers now provide a day in that particular area to be able to deliver services where people don't actually have to travel. So reducing barriers improving access to services, understanding what the funding needs are, and being able to direct that funding, you know, for the best community benefit.
Thanks
Which is
so
what-
much. Thank you, Sam. Well,
Have some comments on that too.
oh,
if
sure,
there's time.
Tynan, please,
Look,
please.
I would say in
okay.
terms of the funding aspect and the value part, the beauty about lived experience is the stories and the stories that people are willing to share and the way that people can do it. A big thing that I would say has been a strength of the networks that I've been in terms of getting funding and that value add is through the stories, and having someone within the network who has the ability to get up and carefully deliver a presentation or deliver their lived experience story in a way that really shows that suicide is everyone's business. It really helps to open up the narrative and open up where people see that value added in. Like, I've seen amazing examples of that where people have spoken at events and people from the council have said, wow, we now need to have someone from lived experience, come and advise us around our parks and maintenance things so that we can update the aesthetics of things to make them more suicide prevention focused. I've seen opportunities where people have spoken and police departments have said, hey, we need to get someone to come in and talk to our new recruits because they need to hear this story. But there's many ways to do that. Like Roses in the Ocean have amazing training and things that are there. But the other thing that I'd say to that is that, and I'm going to acknowledge the work that Nicola's done, particularly leading, but having lived experience people remunerated for their work is a really, really important step that's happened in the landscape of suicide prevention. To have people that they're actually paid for their time is really, really a valuable step. And yeah, I love the work that's happened around that space. And be bold. Like, it's okay to be bold and try things.
Thank you, Tynan. I'm conscious that we are coming close to the end of the session, but we've got a great question to give to the three of you to finish this session off. And it's, what sort of support should we provide for each meeting? And I will start that. Ray, you could start us off on that, please.
What sort of support for each suicide prevention meeting?
Yeah, what support should we provide for each meeting? And this is from somebody who's actually a member of a LEAG and is asking what kind of supports should be provided.
Yeah, interesting. I'm just thinking of my own experience. The meetings I've been to, if you've got 10 people in the room, there will be 10 different types of engagement or support, if it's sought, that is effective. I think making people aware that there should be access to professional support and peer support as a fundamental, and just asking people that Sam referred to before. I might hand to her, but having that working together agreement and identifying, talking about beforehand what does identify that an individual might need support during a meeting. If I'm getting the context of that question right, I might hand to Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. And I think the working together agreement is a really useful tool if you need to revisit it. And it's also part of being a member of our group, so that when you join the group, that you sign up to that to say, yep, I'm willing to do that. But it's also, I think, a really great way to get buy-in around that support from each other. So when we did our working together agreement, we came to the realization that support was a really important part of being a part of the network, and that it wasn't the responsibility of the person needing support to reach out. It was the responsibility of the network to reach in and say, hey, I want to acknowledge that it's been a really difficult discussion today. Here's my contact details. Please reach out if you need some support, because some difficult things do get discussed and there's some challenging moments and discussions, like you say, Ray, there's 10 people sitting in the room or 20 people sitting in the room with a different perspective. So it's about being respectful, but also making support available. So, you know, I always offer our warm line callback service that's available to anyone within that network who wants to chat with somebody around, you know, being impacted by suicide, and also my own, you know, personal contact details, my email address, and reaching out if I feel that things haven't landed so well. But we have some amazing service providers within our networks, and everybody is super supportive and super collaborative. And I think if everyone comes with that mindset, and that's the standard and the tone of how that network works, you find that it's such a cohesive and collaborative group that people automatically feel warm and welcome and included in that group, and hence supported or having the ability to reach out for support if they need it.
Tynan, thank you, Sam.
I would agree with everything that's been said. I think that there's also that expectation setting at the start, when particularly with a LEAG, and setting the foundation that what the purpose is. I've been involved in LEAGs where it's crossed sort of the line and become more of a support group, which is very needed. But I think that there's also a difference between a LEAG and a support group. And also knowing that as someone who is leading a meeting, like you might be the chair of the group, it's at the heart of it, it's not your job to be everything to everyone, and know that that's there, that there is a lot of options out there to have people get supported. But I think the thing you find out with people is having a conversation before it happens. So rather than waiting for someone to experience distress in a meeting, just have a conversation around how they like support. Most people with lived experience of suicide have a pretty good self-care plan in place, or a pretty good strategy around how they manage themselves, and yeah, just play into people's strengths. But I'm a big believer in that autonomy and allowing people to control their own sort of power balance. I'm not using the right words at the end of the day, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think you've all come across really clearly there. We are coming up to the end of the session now. I don't know about you, but it's certainly gone very quickly for me. I'd like to thank everybody who's joined this webinar today for coming to this session today, and to listening to Sam, Ray and Tynan share their own personal experiences and pathways to suicide prevention groups, and what they've shared with us today around their whys, their hows, how they've sustained themselves and their own groups in the work that they've been doing, and how they've evolved with the changes as well, and the real importance of collaboration and connectivity, and that you know, there's no magic solution, but if you're all working together towards a common purpose and a common goal, and you're collaborating together, that's where that's where the sense of purpose and the real meaning comes into the work that you do. So I thank you all for your individual and group contributions today. I'd also just like to do a shout out to Leah Harvey, who I'm sure won't mind me mentioning her, because she comes to every session, and she'd just like to say well done to all three of you for the work that you're doing and for the session today. So we thank you for that. Julia's just going to finish us off with a couple of things before we go.
Thank you so much. And please, I am sorry for my voice. It's on the way out. But I just wanted to recap, especially following that last question on supports within Roses in the Ocean. We are very well aware of how important it is to be mindful of our own sustainability and energy levels. So I just really want to encourage everybody joining us today to take the time to look after themselves following this, and give themselves the space that they need to decompress. Just to let you all know, we will be having a poll, very short, of just 4 questions that will pop up on your screen after you exit this webinar. This is just to help Nicola and myself ensure that we're delivering the sort of topics that you're looking for, and that we can further your development as lived experience collective members. Also, just want to remind everybody that we have our community mentoring happening at the end of this month on the 25th of June, and we'll be joined by Carolyn Allen and Glenn Cotter. Ray O'Brien is also one of our gorgeous community mentors, so keep an eye out on the schedule as it's posted for the end of the year for an opportunity to speak with him one-on-one on a Zoom meeting, or not one-on-one, in a group community mentoring setting. We will also have our following session on the Thursday, the 11th of June. That's going to be run by Mark Ellis and Elle Wales, two fabulous members of our Roses in the Ocean team, and they're going to be discussing sustainability of the suicide prevention workforce. So we hope to see you all there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Look forward to seeing you all soon.